Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about villain groups in the Walking Dead franchise and picking out my top 10 favourite villain groups from the entire Walking Dead franchise. So I will be mentioning some of the great villains like Shane because he's technically not in a group, and the Governor, even though he's a part of a group, he feels very disjointed from the members of Woodbury, so he and Woodbury will not be mentioned either. So let's jump right into this with number 10. And I have to say, the Clarks. Even though they are technically the protagonists of Fear the Walking Dead, the original point of Fear was to follow villains. And if you look at the Clarks in the first 3 seasons especially, can you really say they are protagonists? Everywhere they go, they join a new group, they destroy the new group, and they move on. The Clarks, just in the first few months of the apocalypse, were just chaos. They were pure forces of nature, going from place to place to place, getting people killed, and then moving on. So I feel like I have to mention the Clarks, because they are one of the worst protagonists in the Walking Dead franchise. They are borderline just all villains. So I feel like the Clarks have to be mentioned. And number 9 is the Walkers. And you might feel it's a bit of a cop-out. However, the Walkers have been the main villain of certain arcs like No Way Out. So because of that, I'm going to put them on this list. The Walkers have been a focus and been a force against our survivors. And if our survivors are protagonists, the Walkers are the antagonists. And that means they're villains. So I'm going to put them on this list. Tell me down below, do you think they deserve to be on this list or do you think they don't? Number 8 are the Claimers, and I really like the Claimers just because they show how dangerous life on the road is and how groups of people can just come together. Even though they're all very individual, they will rip each other apart. They are a really nice force of nature in the back half of Season 4 to show the dangers of traveling in the wilderness and traveling across the wasteland, so I have to put them on this list. And number 7 is the Commonwealth, and I really like this villain group just because of how different they are to every other group in the Walking Dead franchise. Every other group is just a group of people that want resources or they go to war because it's some territory. The Commonwealth, the civilization they built, is so much like the old world. It doesn't really feel like it's a post-apocalypse, and I really like how all the villains in this community are not these big macho or these big antagonists like we've been used to. They are these normal people, these bureaucrats, these politicians, which are corrupt and which are very charismatic. These are some really great villains, and I really like this community just because of how different they are and how it shows how much humanity is rebuilt and what the villains will be like moving forwards into this franchise now that the Wild West days are over, for say. Number 6 is the Nest, and I have to put it on this list because of how unique it is, and it's just like the Commonwealth. I really like when groups and villains are very different to our main group, and what I like about the Nest is they're telling a story which hasn't really been touched on in the franchise before, with a religious group, and they're trying to find this character to go, and they treat him like he's the second coming, Laurent. I really enjoy the story with the Nest and how it's very personal with Daryl. It's a very well done, very well told group and a villain arc. They haven't really done it anywhere else in this franchise. The closest maybe they got was with the Reapers, but that was just poorly done. Even though the Reapers are really cool, they look cool, it's just the execution of the Reapers and the characters are sucky, so they wouldn't be in maybe the top 10 worst villains, but they're kind of in the middle. But moving on to number 5, and I have to say the Doomsday Cult, and I cannot talk about villain groups or villains without somehow mentioning my favourite villains from Fear the Walking Dead, the whole Doomsday Cult and Teddy. And this group is again another really unique group, and I really like that. I also really like how this group is just full on crazy. Other groups, you can kind of see how they got there, and you can kind of see their side of things at times, but then you have the Doomsday Cult and you're like, yeah, they're just full on crazy. They want to nuke the world, so the end is the beginning. It is absolute insanity of this group. Amazing villains. All the characters in this group, which is Teddy and Riley, are phenomenal. This is the only group really to have their own webisode because they got their own origin with Fear the Walking Dead, Dead in the Water. Great webisode, go watch that. And this is only actually the only villain group to do what they achieved. They nuked the whole southern states of America. They launched 15, 16 nukes and they blew up 3, 4 states. That's pretty mad. So I have to mention Doomsday Cult as one of the best villains in the Walking Dead franchise, just because they actually were able to achieve their goal of nuking half of America. Number 4 is going to be the Hunter Termites. Okay, we cannot talk about this again without mentioning the Hunter Termites, some of the darkest villains in the Walking Dead franchise. These villains are really cool just because you get to understand them. We get to see flashbacks, so they weren't actually good people that were crossed by the wrong people, and they got so much trauma, they were like, we're going to have to kill everyone that we come across, we can't trust them. And they're full-on cannibals. These villains are only really short, they're only maybe in 4 episodes, because they're in 1 episode of season 4 and then 3 episodes of season 5, so it's a very short arc, but these villains have some staying power, so we're going to have to mention them. Number 3, the Whisperers, one of my favourite villains of all time, just because of how cool they are. They walk among the dead, they wear cool ass masks, they look really amazing. They deserve to be up on this list, but I really like Alpha, I really like Beta, I really like Gamma, and the whole philosophy is amazing. These are so iconic on the later seasons of The Walking Dead, and I really enjoy them, and I really like how they did so many time jumps, so our survivors didn't have guns anymore, so they had to actually fight the Whisperers hand to hand, which made them very scary. These are a very scary villain. They're not a very dark villain like the previous ones. They are definitely the scariest villain. They have an amazing theme song. I have to put the Whisperers in number 3. And number 2 is the CRM, the overarching villain of the Walking Dead franchise. And this villain, every time we see them, they kind of get better. They have so much lore. They're so creative. I really like how they are this secret organization that's feels like they've been pulling strings at times. I really like how, especially for a period of time, they would just pop up in different shows, and they would have these one-off episodes where you would have a helicopter land, our characters would deal with them, and then they would just disappear again. These are a really interesting villain. The way this story was told throughout the entire franchise was really cool, with them taking Rick away and having little Easter eggs in The Walking Dead, and then having them pop up for 3 seasons in Fear the Walking Dead and having 2 shows dedicated to them, The Ones Who Live and World Beyond. Really interesting storyline. I really like all the characters that are connected to this whole villain group. And this villain group just looks really cool. They have these really unique outfits, and I really like how it's almost, even though they never met the Commonwealth are white and red, these guys are black. It's an iconic uniform, and they have the iconic 3 rings. There's so much mystery around them. Even though we have finished the story, this still feels like there's more to tell. Even though the story maybe ended not too well, the build-up and the years we spent theorizing about them, they deserve to be mentioned because they are very iconic. Now, number 1 is the Saviors, and we're talking about villain groups. We cannot not put the Saviors as number 1, just because you have some really great villains. You have Negan, Simon, Gareth, and so on. You have Dwight, and they have some really great characters, but as an entire group, they are just absolutely iconic, even though they are connected to some of the worst episodes and storylines in The Walking Dead, seasons 7 and 8, but they are still one of the best villains just because of how amazing they are. And what makes the Saviors so great is that not all the Saviors are bad, and there's a whole reason why I didn't mention the Governor, so I feel like no one other than the Governor was evil, but then in the Saviors you have that evil section, but you also have this tragic side of the Saviors as well, so I have to put them as number 1 because they're just so iconic. And even though the Saviors are gone, their story was finished ages ago, they are still around in the franchise. They still get revived. They got carried on to season 9 and they're being brought back in Dead City, so we have to mention the Saviors as the best villain group in The Walking Dead, in my opinion. Now, this is it for me today, so please tell me down below, do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Who are your top 10 favourite villain groups in The Walking Dead franchise? But this is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.